How's it going? We are back again for a pastor's chat about local church details. Jason's here, just to make it uncomfortable. And what we're going to do is just finish up our discussion about elders. We've talked about who elders are. We've talked about what elders do. And we've talked about sort of how the elder board functions a little bit. And so today I want to ask just a couple more questions about elders. The first one is, how do you become an elder? Like, do you just say you want to be one? You just show up and tell us, hey, I want to be an elder.
Right.
My name's Jason. You should take me. Do you go to seminary? Does that make you an elder? What?
Right.
How do you become an elder? How does a person take on that role?
So ultimately, it's a gift of the Spirit, a gift of Christ, right? It's those men that are called by God are called gifts, and we see that in Ephesians, right? So ultimately, from beginning to end, it is God's choice, not man's. The Holy Spirit, that passage in Acts, right, sets apart men for that.
Acts 13.
Acts 13, that role. That's one thing, but underneath that, of course, how does it sort of like practically flesh itself? How does the Spirit work?
Yeah, because if you say God makes an elder, then how does he tell
what does that
the
mean?
church what
Right.
the elder is?
I think, of course, like 1 Timothy talks about aspiration or desire, like the word for desire or lust actually there. It's a strong desire for not the title or like the position, but the work. It's a fine work that he desires to do, 1 Timothy 3:1. So there is that internal pull, push, however you want to call it.
Yeah.
But that also is then sort of like clarified or ferreted out in the context of the local church. So there's the objective, if you will, confirmation, not by you, not by your wife only or something, but by like your friends, but by the local church and by other elders. Not just anybody, but those who are already in positions of authority, who are elders themselves, called by God to do that and be that. And together, and in terms of timing and all of that, that's, every case is different. Every church is going to be different. Every guy is going to be different, but
so
that's how it works.
So for the elder, there's a subjective reality, like a longing, a desire to do the work, to shepherd the flock, to care for people, to teach the word. So all that's got to be there stirring in the heart. And at the same time, God's got to be functionally, objectively making those things come to pass through the local church, the local church's affirmation. Not just the people of the church, but also the leadership of the church.
Yeah, otherwise, I mean, anybody can have a desire for anything. But we got to know that it's a good desire. Like, is this a right desire, a spirit-led desire, or is this a selfishly ambitious guy?
Got it.
So.
And then if you got a guy, let's say you have a guy who has this strong internal desire, it seems like he's a good teacher, it seems like the local church seems to be affirming him sort of. Are there other sort of things that need to be in place in the guy's life in order for him to be validated as an elder?
Yeah, the desire must coincide obviously with the gifting, like ability to teach, which is, more wide than just preaching in the pulpit.
Right, yeah.
But most importantly, I mean, if we look at any of the elder qualification passages, really leadership passages, even 1 Peter 5, the emphasis is on the character of the man and the character in which he, his home life in which he carries himself individually, and the character that he has as he conducts ministry in the church. So more than anything else, obviously the ability to teach has to be there.
Right.
But the overwhelming characteristics are all character qualities and attitudes of the heart, rather than like he needs to be this kind of personality, he needs to be extroverted, not introverted, he needs to have a degree, he needs to be at the church 50 years before you lay hands on him. A lot of those external things are completely not talked about at all, in fact. And so that just reminds us that the work is a heart work, rather than like something that you get credentials for.
So at the end of the day, seminary, all those things, those are not necessarily bad things.
Right, they're good
those
things.
are all sort of add-ons to the deeper reality.
Yeah.
And then that deeper reality is known in a person, in a guy, by just time at the church, this period of time that they get to know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, usually not a month.
Yeah.
But I mean, and I think, like historically, let's say our church has been slower. But I think that's by design, not because the thing is, some people see that and think that means we don't want to give people ministry.
Right.
Or we want to like stymie people. But if God calls a man or a woman to a specific role in the church, obviously women not elders, but whatever role that might be, let's say in this case elders, we would want to affirm.
Right.
Like, our heart is like, let's be this is Christ's man for the job.
Yeah.
We don't want to get in the way of Jesus.
For sure.
Wanting to build up his church and
God's going to do his work, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So, and that takes time.
How long were you at FBC before you became an elder?
1 month. No.
I clearly was out of town during that process. No.
That happened. What was it now? Over about 3.5, 4 years or so,
4 years?
somewhere in that ballpark.
Okay.
And so,
which is pretty fast for us.
It is actually.
I was at
fast.
FPC for 12 years before I
Yeah.
became. But you're better.
It was
than
dicey.
I am. You're better than I am. It was sketchy the first few
But
years.
and this is not to defend myself in any
Right.
way, shape, or form. But every situation is different. Like you could have a guy who was functioning as a pastor. You could have a guy who was doing this or that. Or, I mean, that's where it's not a template.
Yeah.
You know, we're not going to say, well, because he was this way, you're going to also be this way.
For sure.
Everything moves differently by the Spirit. And
so we don't like put time frames on things.
No.
We just want to be very open-handed with that. But
Right.
God has his time frame, and our job is just to observe that.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
yeah, and definitely not like me or anybody else pushing that, or
Right.
like wink, wink, or sliding little hints under the door. Hey, when are you gonna come knock on my door and tell me to be an elder? Definitely, that would be a disqualification
for sure,
or at least a strong
because that's a guy like
pause.
trying to grab at the ministry as opposed to the ministry being handed to him.
Exactly,
that makes sense.
Exactly.
And then one other question. So then, as elders, how do we make a decision? Like we come to a decision in the church. Are we gonna do this or that, whatever choice it's gonna be? Especially during this time with COVID, there's been so many, just sort of like almost every week, there's another set of decisions that have had to have been made. So how do we, as elders, make a decision then for the church, and how do we know if that's God's will or not?
That's an awesome question. Yeah, there's no manual, either in 1st, 2nd Timothy, Titus. We looked, and it's not there. And I would say ultimately, we are prayerfully, humbly leading together by the means of unanimity. Meaning that we want to all be on the same page. There's one Spirit, one faith, one baptism, one Lord, one church. We want to do whatever we can to preserve the unity that the Spirit has forged amongst us. He created the church, not us. And that unity is so precious because it's bought by the blood of Christ. So we want to do whatever it takes, not to just say, well, that guy wants it, so we're going to just follow him. Or I want it, so everybody should follow him. Whatever that, however that dynamic works out. We want unanimity. We want to all agree with that decision, whatever that is. And if we're not in agreement, then we'll table that decision. And why do we do that? Well, what does that mean? We'll say, well, that's the Lord's will at that time for that to be tabled and the pause button to be hit, or for that decision to go forward or not go at all. And we believe that God works through the elders collectively, not just one guy or two guys versus one guy or anything like that. And in that way, his will is made known.
So for example, if an elder decision, so this happens sometimes, right? One of us will say I don't agree with that.
Right, of course.
So then we would just pause that. It's not like Robert's Rules of Order. We don't have
vote.
We don't have a majority, supermajority, nothing like the Senate, none of that stuff. We just all we're doing is seeking that everyone be on the same page. Under the assumption that the Spirit is one Spirit and He'll lead all of us together.
And He
will. We're walking by faith.
And I think He has. And people think maybe from the outside that that's not possible. Or people, if they're used to a voting system, will be like, that's impractical. And we'll say, well, when has the church been about practical?
Yeah, exactly.
Because if you put pragmatism above, unity, heart unity, love, I mean, that could be really dangerous and I think detrimental to the relationship of the elders. And once that has a fracture in it, I mean, you know what that kind of thing causes.
For sure,
so we just want to be super careful to be, in a sense, it's like marriage, right? We're all being deferential to each other. Now the difference here is it's not like one guy's the wife and the other guy's the husband. It's not like that, but the principle of we're willing to say, you know what, I want to consider you as more important than me.
Yeah, for sure.
And each of us is kind of thinking that way or trying to, obviously.
Seeking to.
Yeah.
And then and then everyone gets the same vote.
Yes, same authority, same vote.
All the same authority, all the same vote, we're all on the same level, and then we all come together and say, okay, here's a decision. Do we do this decision or not? And it has to be everyone votes yes.
Yes.
What if our church was bigger and we had 30 elders? Would everyone still have to vote yes?
Even more so, I think. In some ways, I think the larger the group is, the more incumbent it is that you press on to unity. You just you try to hold on to that as best
more
as
than
you
anything
can.
else.
Yeah, because that 14th elder, his voice may not be heard, whatever, right? And
whatever
he's
it
just
is,
going to feel like, oh, every time we have a decision, I say something and no one ever listens to me.
Yeah.
Now that could be some of it his fault. I mean, but like the point is, we don't want to just railroad over a guy and be like, well, 80% of us think this is wise, and you're always
you're always annoying and telling us no,
the party pooper. So
sure.
we can't have that. That's just not the church. And if the eldership functions that way, the church will be that way.
Yeah, for sure. That totally makes sense.
Yeah.
The other thing I was thinking even as you were talking, that it's just a beautiful thing because everyone's gifted slightly differently, right?
Yeah.
So Joe, me, you, we're all gifted in slightly different ways, and so we can functionally care for each other that way.
Exactly.
Which, if any one of us is like, well, my gift's more important, then puts us in a dangerous position.
Very dangerous, like Diotrephes.
Yeah.
Like just seeking to be first. Yeah, exactly. Like the church is composed of different types of members with different types of gifts. Some people are stronger in one area and the other. Cover each other's blind spots.
Yeah.
Help each other's weaknesses and lean on each other's strengths, and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, for sure. So there's times when you've told me no.
Never. I always kowtow to John.
Shoot.
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, we've had disagreements. Nothing heated or personal.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, you cannot take this personally. This is not about me.
No.
This is not about you. This is the Spirit's ministry.
Yeah.
Christ's